One of the first books that gave the most resonant words for what I've been experiencing in my life was Your Rainforest Mind by Paula Prober. Her book held up a mirror to my life in a way that few others have. I read a lot, and this is one of the only books that's ever made me feel truly seen. Paula made the everyday experience of having a mind like this feel less alien, and I want to give her credit. It took a lot of courage to pull the concept of giftedness out of academic journals and give it a language that her clients and people like me could actually connect to. The rainforest mind isn't just a metaphor, it's medicine for the gifted adult soul. She made this experience accessible. She made it human. She cast the gifted adult life in a light of hope. Sure, it's challenging, as we talked about a lot in this podcast episode, but it's also very powerful. It's not a pathology. It's something that we have to learn how to manage, but it's not something we have to fix. She makes you feel like your mind is beautiful, and she made me feel less alone. By the time I interviewed her, I already had Paula's voice in my head from reading her book. It was like she'd been talking directly to me for hours. So when she popped up on the screen for our interview, for me, it was like talking to Elvis. I even said in the interview that I was fangirling, and that was the honest truth. I loved Paula before the interview ever started. I was up the night before thinking about it, and the morning of, I was bouncing off the walls, just giddy with anticipation. If you watch the video version of this interview, you probably noticed all the cuts where I'm grinning from ear to ear, and that's because Paula and I were laughing so much throughout the interview. Unfortunately, and it's totally my fault, there was an audio issue and I had to cut out most of the laughing parts, but the smiles still remained. There were also a couple of moments in this interview where I got emotionally stirred up, and one time where I actually teared up. And in this reflection episode, I want to unpack just a couple of those emotional responses. So let's just go ahead and start at the deep end of the pool. Here is the moment of the interview when the tears started to show up for me. Do you think that experience is going to be a lifelong journey for gifted people? Do you ever outgrow it to a point where you're smooth sailing, or is it a lifetime of this buffet of help?
Yeah, I think it's a lifetime. What I notice is that rainforest-minded people are always doing that inner work, on the journey of who am I? Self-actualization,
Mhm.
contributing on the planet. Why am I
Mhm.
here? What am I here to do? Yes, I think it's lifelong, and I think maybe one key is to not pathologize that.
As you're talking, when you said lifelong, I immediately teared up because it's so hard. It's a
Mhm.
hard life.
Yeah. It's hard to find places where you can say, "This is hard,"
Yeah.
because, right, the average person will say, "You've got everything.
Yeah.
You're so smart. What are you complaining about?
Yeah.
You can do anything you want,"
If I just had
right?
a fraction of your ability, my life would be so great. And here you are
Right.
squandering it.
Yes. Right. So that's it too. You have to really be selective about who you talk to about this, and there aren't a lot of people even still who understand it, who will not criticize you or who will not misunderstand.
We would never tell a person having a heat stroke that just because they've got big muscles and they're a big time athlete, that their heat stroke isn't something that should be taken seriously. You're a marathon runner. What do you mean you're about to pass out? Toughen up. We would never say that. But that's what happens all the time to gifted adults. We're told something like, well, you're so smart, you'll figure it out, as if our pain is invalidated by the intellect. The challenging side of the gifted mind is no less serious and it is no less dangerous. The pain of gifted adulthood is real. And if you felt it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You know what it means to be good at something, like a job or a business, make good money from it. From the outside looking in, everyone thinks that you're so successful, and yet you go home at night, you wake up in the morning, and you feel completely hollow because it doesn't mean anything. It's hard to be in a room full of people and not feel seen by any of them. It's like you're operating on another frequency and can't quite tune in to anybody around you. When what you want more than anything is to connect with people and be seen and be with them, really be with them. And you just can't. It hurts to hear other people talk about the breakthroughs that they're having in their life in ways that are absolutely foreign to you. They discover something like stoicism, or meditation or CBT or EMDR or even LSD, and it transforms their lives. It wakes them up and it changes their lives forever. And so you're like, oh, that's great. I'll try that. You'll try anything. And it'll work for a minute, but then it doesn't. And that's hard. It's hard to be years ahead of your peers or the market and have your insights brushed off only to watch people catch up later. And by the time everybody's caught up, you're burnt out. It's hard to look down the path of your life, realize that you've got maybe 30, 40 years left to go, and you think to yourself, there is no fucking way I can do this for that long. It's hard when life itself just hurts. And some days, the weight of it just feels overwhelming and unbearable. That's hard. It's hard to explain these feelings to your spouse or the people who love you without scaring them. It's hard to see them worry about you. But at the same time, you also realize, yeah, I'm worried about me too. So to hear Paula Prober, someone who works with people like us every day, say that what's going on in our heads that create those kinds of experiences and those kinds of feelings within us, that those are going to be with us for a lifetime, yeah, it made me tear up. And yet, all that being said, I sit here today talking to you with more hope than ever. And part of that hope comes from knowing the power of just being seen, of finally having language for the way that my mind works, of knowing that I'm not the only one. You're here. The label gifted isn't everything, and it's a terrible label, but it's not nothing either. It's the best we've got. I'm starting to realize that my path was meant to be different. There was nothing wrong with me for not doing life like everybody else. I did some things in my 20s that people don't do until their 60s. That difference doesn't mean that my life can't also be wonderful and meaningful. It just means that it's going to be mine. It's going to be different. And I would do myself some good to stop comparing my path to other people's. As Paula said, we are all equal, but we are not all the same. That realization also gives me permission to explore and express in ways that I might not have before I had that understanding. You know, it reminds me of growing up a gay kid in rural Arkansas, living every day in the confusion of my feelings, not seeing myself anywhere, not amongst my peers, not on television or in my community. I didn't meet an openly gay person until I was in college. And even then, I can remember thinking, well, I can't be that because I'm not that. Now, eventually, I learned that the outward expression may be different for all of us, but the inner experience is often very similar. Common challenges, common struggles, shared ambitions. And I learned that my loneliness was often an illusion, born from fear and from self-isolation, but it wasn't my truth. Now I try to remember that outward expression and inner experience are two different things. This topic of loneliness came up when I asked Paula about the people that seek her out. Here's what she said. Like, when you think back to
Yeah.
the last
Well,
gifted person that found you and they start having a
yeah.
conversation with you, what are the moans and the angst that they're telling you right off the bat?
They're lonely.
Yeah.
There's nobody
Yeah.
that understands them. There's nobody
Yeah.
that,
There
right,
we
can
go. Yeah.
reciprocate. You know, they're the ones who are taking care of everybody else, but nobody's taking care of them.
Yeah.
And they can't talk about they have what you're saying. They have anxiety or depression, but loneliness, that's like the
Yeah.
big one.
In my own experience of loneliness, I think a lot of it has come from not knowing myself, being separated from myself. Before I had the language of giftedness, I just thought that something was wrong with me. And I was constantly asking myself, and I was asking anybody I could pay to ask, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? It was like my mantra in life. But doing this work, starting this podcast and this newsletter, connecting with many of you, some of you have written back to me to let me know that the things that I'm writing to you make you feel seen. That's helped me realize that I'm not alone. You're not alone. And just like coming out as gay, part of knowing yourself is admitting it to yourself, naming it, and owning it. I'm experiencing that again in this coming out as a gifted adult. And with that comes a familiar sense of relief, the kind you feel when you stop fighting yourself and you start just being who you really are, when you stop apologizing for it, when you stop feeling shame about it. Addressing the separation I have felt within inside myself is helping me close the gap that I feel with other people. As I wrapped up the interview with Paula, I wanted to pull from her years of experience the essence of what it means to thrive as a gifted adult, especially in today's world. Here's that part of our conversation. What
Mm.
advice are you giving your clients to help them get through
Yeah.
this period and
I
through
know.
life?
I know. There aren't words, right, for what's happening right now.
Yeah.
There really aren't words. So on the one hand, find community, but then for the gifted people, it's like, where?
I'm working on
Because
that
it's not
too. I'm working on that
yeah,
too. Yeah.
right. You
Yeah.
can't just go anywhere. So, step 1, understand this thing that we're calling gifted, that rainforest mind. Understand that's who you are. Really get clear about it. Do all the reading, and because you wanna get if there's any part of you that is still rejecting yourself because I'm too much, I'm a lot. When you go there, I'm a lot, I'm too much, that too much, not enough,
Mhm.
all those things, that self-criticism, a big thing is to really get clear about how actually gorgeous you are, how wonderful all these characteristics are, and that you struggle, and then you see it. It's not wrong with me. I have this rainforest mind. Okay.
So allow me to echo her message. You are gorgeous. You have great characteristics. You have a powerful mind. You're not too much. In fact, you are exactly enough. And I would argue that the world needs you, your complexity, your depth, your brilliance, now more than ever. I hope this space, the newsletter, this podcast, feel like a kind of community. As I told Paula, I'm also working to build spaces both online and offline where we can gather and grow together. So keep an eye out for those opportunities. If I have one frustration on the other side of this interview, it's not with Paula herself. It's with the fact that more people don't know about Paula and her work. As I mentioned, I read a lot, and I'm usually reading in search of trying to understand myself better. And it took me way too long to discover Paula. It took me way too long to discover this idea of gifted adulthood. I understand that gifted folks may only make up 3 to 5% of the population, but that's a lot of people struggling. That's a lot of people suffering in search of more self understanding. When I reflect on the interviews that I've recorded for this podcast so far, and yes, I know this is episode number 1, but I've recorded several other interviews already, Paula's stands out. Everybody that I've interviewed so far has really made me think. They have challenged the way I've looked at myself and the world. Paula, Paula made me feel. We gifted adults, we need more people like Paula in our lives. We need the gifted feelers, the ones who help us come back to ourselves, not through our logic or our analysis, but through presence, empathy, and allow us not to just know more about ourselves, but to feel ourselves as we really are. Writing this reflection has been really hard for me. I spent several days doing it because I have no argument to unpack with Paula. There's no opinion that I need to give my side of. There's just a deep emotional truth and resonance with my guest. There's so much in Paula's interview, so many threads that I left unpulled in my conversation with her. So I would love to have Paula back on the podcast to chat some more. And I've created a way for you to be part of that conversation. Down in the show notes down below, you're going to find a link where you can submit questions, comments, or your own reflections about this interview with Paula. Those will come to me and Paula, and she will answer those the next time that she is on the podcast. If this episode resonated with you, please consider leaving a 5-star rating and sharing it with somebody who needs it. My name is Chad Peavy. Take care of yourself. I'll see you next time.